How's everybody doing today? Show you a quick and easy way to make a tuna noodle casserole. Now it doesn't have to be tuna. You can use chicken, whatever meat you want. This is just the basics on how to use how to make your own noodles, how to make your own roux and put it all together, etc. Start with the basic noodle recipe. I have here a cup of all-purpose flour. Yes, it does need to be all-purpose. Into a mixing bowl. You don't have to have a stand mixer for this, by the way. It's just very handy. 1/2 a teaspoon of salt, and in here I have 1 egg and 2 tablespoons of milk mixed. Now, what I'm going to do is start my blender on low. If I can find low or start. Oh wait, you know what? It LC plug it in. Try again. Slowly add in my liquid. Once that's all in, bowl will spin. Sure it all gets mixed in. Notice I have my paddle attachments on and not your blending attachments. It does make a difference. I'll take a nice spatula straight down the sides. This recipe is for a small, we're only 3 of us here, so this is a small batch. You can always double it, except for the milk. Start with 2 tablespoons of milk. If you need to double it, then you can always go up on the milk, but you can never go backwards. Starting to come together. Comes up a little bit. Eventually it will come together into a dough. Depending on the size of your egg, you might need to use just a little bit more milk and let it wants to come together or not. Mine looks like it's a little dry right now. I might need to add another 1/2 a teaspoon or so of milk. Start with 1/2 a tablespoon. It's a smaller egg. So it's always easier to add liquid than it is to take it away. Not quite coming together, needs just a hair bit more liquid. 5 minutes for it to come together. It's starting to get there. Still not quite enough liquid, but we're getting very close. You'll see a lot of how I cook is seat of the pans. Experience teaches you a lot. Recipes only work so far. Start coming together. Must have used a tiny egg. Now we're cooking with gas. So, to roll out our noodles, take a nice dry cooking board, cutting board, flat surface period, and we're going to flat dust it with all-purpose flour. Use parchment paper too with the all-purpose on it. I don't happen to have any parchment paper, so this will have to do. Also, your rolling pin, flour, your noodle dough ball. It's a little damp. It's just fine. They have to dry a little bit anyway. And you roll it out. Start from the middle, work your way out. Must be a little extra sticky. Just a little extra flour. It will eventually come off. You make your noodles as thick or as thin as you want. The recipe I'm following calls for 1/4 of an inch. I'm probably gonna go a bit thinner. Mine are cooking twice. I'm not going to par cook. I'm only going to par cook them slightly in boiling water. Or if you have it, chicken broth would actually be better to par cook them in to give them a little flavor. Or whatever your especially if you're making like a chicken casserole instead of tuna, like I'm making. You know, I'm sticking to the cutting board. I didn't flour it enough. Happens, but it's all good. It's just dough. Can be rolled out again, or it's floured again. Heavier this time. Same with our rolling pin. Flour. Roll out your noodles. Doesn't matter what they look like, they're about to be chopped up anyway. You can get your ruler or tape measure out if you want to. I'm going by eye and experience. And how thick I want my noodles. You can cook these noodles immediately. You need to let them dry. I prefer to let them dry just a little bit, not too awful long enough for me to make the roux. And I have a tea towel. There's a lid to my casserole dish. I have a tea towel that I'm gonna put my cut noodles on. Perfect noodle cutter right here. Most houses have one. You can go 1/2 inch, you can go 1/4 inch, you can go whatever size you need. I like a little broader noodle for my casseroles. Short. Trying to make big long noodles, you're making bite-sized bits, almost dumpling-like. Alright, here's my noodles. I'll take them, set them on the tea towel, dry out. Separate them if you want. Get them together if you want. Dry them out so they don't stick together when you cook them. And if you do want to go ahead and cook them through, all you have to do is put them in a pot of boiling water. As soon as they start floating, they're done. It usually only takes about 5 minutes to cook. Mine are going to also bake. I'm probably only going to cook mine for about 3 minutes. And then I'm going to clean up this mess and we'll get started with the next one. Okay, here goes the roux. Since I'm making quite a bit of roux, I usually don't use measurements. This is just something I learned through my granny and several years of food classes. So I'm making quite a bit, so I'm starting with an entire stick of butter. That's yes, that's a lot of butter, I know. It's gonna make a lot of roux. Just gotta melt that butter down. Just turn my heat up so we can get it melted. With that, we're gonna add flour to it. Exact amount should be equal parts, so 1/2 cup, 1/2 cup. But we've got an awful lot of flour in our noodles already, so I'm using a little less than 1/2 cup of flour. And I'll finish my thickening with cornstarch. Basically, we're gonna cook this flour and butter
until it's almost like a paste. And it will turn into a paste eventually. I got my heat turned up, it should be getting there soon. Using a nice thick bottom pan for this so it retains heat. And I do have a pot of simmering water over here for my noodles for when that's ready. Turn that down a little bit so it doesn't start rolling. This is called a blonde roux. There's a brown roux and a brick roux also. We are just focusing on a blonde roux for the moment. Just basically fat and flour. How you cook it determines its color, etc. Brick roux is baked in the oven until, you guessed it, it's about a brick red, and a brown roux is done in the pan until it browns. This isn't browning, this is blonding here. We're getting there. You can add chicken stock to this. I'm going to basically primarily be just using milk. I might throw a little evaporated milk in there, not quite sure yet. We'll see how it goes. I'm pretty sure milk will be sufficient. Like I said, we're not making a huge casserole here, just for 3 people, maybe last 2 days. We'll see if it's even that big. With the amount of noodles I made, I doubt it. Alright, so our roux is almost together. Lower my temperature. Now, here comes the fun part. We start adding milk. Yes, whole milk. We need the fat content. And as we add it, you'll see it starts to thicken up. Thicker and thicker. That's how you make gravy, by the way. Your sausage grease or bacon grease. Add flour, add milk, bam, gravy. Real simple. So we want this to be a medium thin white sauce or white roux, blonde roux when it's finished. As much flour and as much butter as I've got in it, it's going to take an awful lot of milk, but you see I'm adding it in increments. I'm going to shock the cold milk to the hot pan. Bring the temperatures together smoothly until it's uniform. Add your next half cup and repeat. When you get to a point where it seems a little too thin, that's when you add your cornstarch. And this here's a good time to add a little pink Himalayan sea salt. And just a little bit of black pepper. I prefer fresh ground, but this is what I've got, so this is what I'm using. This is coming together. Still awful thick. Remember, we're going for thin to medium. I'm bringing that flour up to temperature so that cooks in with the milk and absorbs it evenly with no lumps. We don't want lumps. So we do it like we do. Constant motion. Using a plastic fork. You can tell my heat's not too high. I'm not melting my fork. It's a good hint for you there. Start melting your fork and the heat's too high, get you another plastic fork, lower your heat, try again. Come together. And this will thicken up some more as it bakes also. We're getting closer. A little bit more milk. We're going to layer this with the noodles and the tuna. I have a can of peas and carrots. I don't have a whole lot of noodles to layer it with. I should have made double the recipe myself, and I might double my recipe. before I put it all together. Just FYI, if it doesn't look like there's gonna be enough noodles. I said the noodles are easy enough to come together. Be a lot thinner. There we go. So if you haven't noticed, I've used probably about 3.5, 4 cups of milk, whole milk, a stick of butter, a little salt, a little pepper, maybe half to a third to a half a cup of flour. My roux is becoming a sauce. You can always add a cheese to it. Parmesan's good. It'll also help thicken it. I like mozzarella, but not for this particular dish. If there's a chicken casserole, I would most certainly recommend cheese. But the one I'm making right now is tuna noodles, so I would not put cheese with my tuna. Almost perfect, still a little thick. Got another half, 3/4 cup milk. I think it's up to about 4.25 cups probably. I said I don't like to measure, I go by sight, feel, experience. A little overspill there. Coming together. What I like to see about right there. I'm gonna turn the heat off. Remember, it's going to thicken a little bit. Starting to melt my fork and getting a little hot. Off the heat, stir it in. Nice and smooth, no lumpy lumps. There's our white sauce. Okay. Here we go. I've already cooked my first batch of noodles. There's my boiling water, my roux, my sauce. I'm doing this part handheld because a lot of it you're going to need to see. And here's how I'm cooking my noodles. And yes, I did make a second batch of noodles. That wasn't going to be enough. So I'm taking the ones that I've set out to dry, putting them in this strainer right here. Watch out for the shoddy camera work. Now, take my noodles. It's in my boiling water, or simmering. It was boiling just 30 seconds ago. And watch how fast this happens. This literally takes no time at all. They start floating. They're basically cooked. Takes almost no time at all to cook those noodles. But we're not fully cooking them. We're par cooking them. Since this is going to be done in 2 layers, this is the end of the first layer. See how that take 30 seconds? Not even. I'm going to drain right in on top of the other noodles. Alright, now we'll go for our layers. I have white albacore tuna and a can of peas. So what I'm going to add is a little bit of the peas. Oops, spilled a little bit. About half the can. Now, 1 can of tuna. Doing this one-handed so I can film it all for you. And yes, my hands are clean. I just washed them. Break your tuna up. Spread it out throughout, just like your peas. You want all this nice and evenly distributed for whoever consumes it, to get a little bit of something in every bite. Now we come to our sauce. It's nice and thickened up. We're just going to coat a layer of sauce. Use about half of what we made. Take the back of our ladle, Smush that around. Doesn't have to be beautiful or perfect. And repeat. Layer of noodles, layer of peas, layer of tuna, layer of sauce. I'll hit back with you when the next layer of noodles is done. Okay, we're back. Got my second batch of noodles in. From the rest of my peas, I might want to save a couple for the top. And we'll just put them all in there. Peas are my favorite vegetable. As someone who can't eat a lot of vegetables, I like it. You know how to catch a polar bear? It's a joke for you. Cut a hole in the ice. You surround that hole with peas. When the polar bear comes up to take a pee, you kick him in the ice hole. Ba-dum-bum. Dad joke. Gotta do it. I'm a dad. It's the law. Let's get our tuna spread. Trust me, it's going to be more than enough tuna. I did put a layer of salt and pepper on top of those noodles. Just push that down a little bit. Remember, our hands are washing in between every step. As a matter of fact, we're rinsing this one off right now. Don't mind the dirty kitchen. The rest of our sauce should just fit. Believe it or not, I've done this a time or two, except for the homemade noodles. I usually use the no yolks, and if you don't want to make your own noodles, those I highly recommend no yolks. You want to cook them a little longer, but still you want them al dente. You don't want them too soft or they'll overcook and become mush in the oven. And as we get the last of our white sauce, our blonde roux, all together. I know some of you hate that sound. I don't care. I love it. Again, use the back. Smush it down in all the cracks and crevasses. I'm shooting with one hand and cooking with the other. Alrighty. And what we have there is something ready to go in the oven. Which, one thing I did not do is preheat the oven. So for this, I'm going to set it to bake. And I'm going to take it up to 375 and preheat it. And this is what she looks like before she goes in. It's got layers. And when she comes out and she gets cut into, you'll all be the first to know. Alright, here we go. We're about to put it in. What we have, I had to set my oven at 400. I highly recommend you get yourselves one of these little thermometers. What I wanted was a temperature between 350 and 375. It's like I'm sitting at about 360, which is perfect. So I am going to take, and pro tip, take you a cookie sheet, line it with aluminum foil, and put it directly underneath where you're going to set your casserole. Now, put your casserole in there. Go ahead and set your timer for 30 minutes. And hit start. Check it about every 15 minutes, every 10 to 15 minutes. When it's nice and brown and bubbly on top and good temperature all the way through, you'll be able to tell, trust me. Then you'll have a great tuna casserole. Okay, after 30 minutes, it's almost there. Not quite. I'm gonna set the timer for another 15 and check it every 5. So after about 45 minutes and between 360, 365, this is what we have. It now needs to cool for another 34 and a half minutes. And then we can dig into it and show you all the deliciousness. So apparently people can't wait around here, and somebody dug into my casserole already. So, you know, fuck him. I know who did it. But, this is what it looks like inside. So it looks like scooped out on a plate. I'll be trying some later. Any questions, shoot them to me.